Hi, how are you? I'm Anthony from Cypher House, and today I'm back with the final installment of Maze-tober. I'm visiting a different corn maze every weekend in October, and I'm looking at the different design philosophies that went into making each maze to learn something about puzzle design. Today, in the grand finale of Maze-tober, we're visiting a corn maze that has been consistently ranked as one of the best corn mazes in the United States. USA Today ranked this corn maze in the number 3 position for the year of 2021, and this maze actually took the number 1 position back in 2020. We're going to Crest Adventure Farm. We're here at Crest Adventure Farms today. Crest Farms has a 5-acre corn maze, which is a bit on the smaller side compared to some of the other corn mazes we're visiting in this series. But Crest Farms is frequently rated as one of the top corn mazes in the country. And it also happens to be the corn maze that I personally am most familiar with, because we used to come here pretty much every year while I was growing up. The price of admissions to Crest Farm varies depending on what day you go. The typical price is somewhere between $15 and $30, depending on if you're going during a low traffic time or a high traffic time. There are discounts available for children 2 and under, as well as military personnel, and there might be discounts if you order your tickets online in advance. So Crest Adventure Farm has a smaller corn maze and a higher admission price than most of the other mazes in this series. But is it worth it? Well, I've been going to Crest Farm for years, so clearly I think so. And my goal in this video is to explain why. The farms sure are crowded today. This was by far the most crowded corn maze that we had been to. It was actually a little bit hard to get footage just because of the sheer number of people all over the farm. But this clip gives you an idea of how many other attractions Crest Adventure Farm has besides just their corn maze. As you can see here, there's food stands, there's gift shops, there's dozens of other farm-related activities in this area. And the property actually continues beyond these train tracks that you can see in the distance into another area that has even more activities for people to do. Since Crest Farms is such a highly ranked maze, we decided to team up with a maze-solving expert to help us through the maze today. It's my brother, Nick! My family has been going to Crest Farm for about 17 years now, so Liz and I decided that it was only right to solve this maze with my brother Nick, his wife Ashley, and my mom and my dad. Now that we had our whole party assembled, it was time to enter the maze. An entry path into the maze was dedicated to explaining how the maze worked on very large signs. 3 different challenges that you could do as you go through the maze. There's the easy challenge where you follow the yellow posts for a 15-minute stroll through the maze. There's an intermediate challenge where you follow the orange clue signs for a 40-minute guided walk to several mailboxes and leading to victory. And then there's the ultimate challenge, which is probably what we're going to be doing. You look for all 15 kernels of knowledge before finding the victory. It could take 2+ hours, but we're here to help if you ask for it. I'll be talking about each of these challenges in more detail as we go through the video, but for our playthrough of the maze, we stuck to the ultimate challenge. This is really nice that they kind of give you the rules as you're walking into the maze. Each pathway is lined with colored ribbons, and the ribbon color tells you which part of the maze you're in. The ribbon colors are listed on the game board. So you see we're in the orange section right now. This is the massive piece of paper that they give us as we walk into the maze. As you see, there are 15 boxes within this rectangle, and then there's also a crossword puzzle that we have to solve with some clues off to the side. We're going to be planning to fill out this entire piece of paper as we go through the maze. I'm going to be talking a lot about how Crest Farm goes the extra mile with pretty much every step of its maze design. And this game sheet is no exception. You can't really tell just by looking at the video, but this game sheet is printed out on heavier, thicker cardstock, which makes it a lot easier to manage and carry around, especially on windy days. We're getting our official stamp clock in. As we enter the maze, we see that there's a few different options here depending on which of those challenge levels we want. We can just follow the easy path and go to the right. Intermediate goes off to the left. And for the ultimate challenge, you can go either way. So we made our choice and begin to explore the maze. We just found our first station in the maze. This is a kernel of knowledge. This is one of the answers to a crossword puzzle. So 9 down, we have a piece of information about the Twin Towers falling on 9/11, and we see the bolded word boats fits perfectly in our slot for 9 down. There were 14 of these kernels of knowledge scattered throughout the maze, and every solution had at least one of these red highlighted letters that you see in boats here. Those highlighted letters contributed to a word scramble for solvers to figure out after they found all the stations. As you go through the maze, you'll spot some of these intermediate challenges. This is the guided tour through the maze, which sometimes gives you tips about how to get between the various sections. This particular one says, "Keep to your right and give thanks on your way to the next clue." Now at the time, I had no idea what this sign meant by saying give thanks. I wouldn't actually figure it out until long after I had solved and gotten out of the maze. What this means is that Cherry Crest gives a unique experience to every solver regardless of the difficulty that they decide to go with. So here we encounter our first of many mailboxes. These mailboxes have tape dispensers on the side and they're numbered. This is mailbox number 3. If we look inside the mailbox, we see there's these little pieces of paper, these little squares with number 3 on this one. So we find square 3 on our major rectangle that I mentioned earlier, and we put that piece in. As you can probably already tell, this is going to make a map of the maze. So we start out not having a clue where we are, but we slowly work out where all of the various sections of the maze are as we go through. These map stations are some of the most ingenious station types that I've ever seen introduced to corn mazes. I'm going to be talking more about this feature as the video goes on, because to me, these map pieces are a large part of what makes Cherry Crest's maze outstanding. Cherry Crest Farms is an interesting maze in that they don't just have the stations for you to collect stuff inside, they have a number of other interesting things for you to find too. This is one of my favorite ones because it annoys my family a lot. I rang the bell. Let's see the rare yellow hanging bats, but ever so quiet. But lift to see how rare these hanging bats may be. They're baseball bats. How rare. Our map is starting to fill in. We just found our third map piece. Even though we were early in our solve of the maze, we actually had our first taste of victory right around this part of our solve. One interesting feature about Cherry Crest Farms maze is that to get to the exit, you have to find this bridge somewhere in the depths of the maze over there. And you get to walk all the way across the top to get out. We came in somewhere on the other side of this corn on the one part of the maze, but right now we're just walking underneath. We do not yet get to claim victory. We have not found the exit stairs. So we continue to explore the maze and take note of some of the special features that Cherry Crest has in their mazes. Here's our helpful guy in the tower, and we see Liz just found another kernel of knowledge. If you're the gambling sort, you can get a random map piece for $0.25. But that's not us. We're gonna go find them all for real. These are not the stairs that lead to the exit. This is a different bridge somewhere in the middle of the maze. But we can sort of get a bird's eye view from up here at least. There's our friend in the tower in the distance again. One of us you'll see is a gate for the easy challenge users only. So we are not allowed to go through this gate. This gate that's used exclusively by those who are doing the easy challenge is another example of how Cherry Crest offers a different experience for every solver regardless of the difficulty level. We'll soon see how something as simple as this can dramatically change the difficulty of the maze and lead to 2 completely separate solve experiences. Okay, we've made it to the far side of the corn maze, and that means we get to encounter the next thing that makes Cherry Crest Farm so special. Inside of the corn maze, there is a snack bar area. No need for us to get snacks after the maze. We can get them while we are solving. So 1 soft pretzel and a couple of apple cider donuts later, and we were able to continue our quest. Our map's coming together well. We're just missing 5 pieces. Still have quite a few kernels of knowledge to get, but we're getting close there too. Oh, what's around the corner? What's around the corner? It's the entrance of the maze. So we officially went all the way around back to this part where we could have gone either way. Okay, we're just about done with our map. We've done what I would call the outer section of the maze, and we've done what I would call the middle section of the maze, and now we have to get to right here, this one single path that I'm pretty sure is going to take us into the dead center of the maze, where I think our last 2 pieces are going to be. Hold on a minute. One specific path that takes solvers to the next section of the maze? That sounds a lot like the Cypher's corn maze back in Maze-tober II. Well, if we take a look at the completed map, we can see that that comparison makes a lot of sense. However, the way that Cherry Crest implemented their maze sections is different than the way that Cypher's did. This map shows the section of the maze that I would call Ring 1, or the Outer Ring. As you can see, this ring goes all the way around the outside of the maze. It passes through several map stations and eventually the snack bar area, which is over here on the far left. But ultimately, if solvers stick to this outer ring long enough, they will end up back at the entrance of the maze where they began. There is only one single path that solvers can take to get from the outer ring into the middle ring, and it's located right here. This path takes the solvers into Ring 2, which again contains several map pieces and makes a complete loop around the entire maze. And it will eventually take solvers right back to how they got into that second ring. And once again, there is only one single path, this time down here at the bottom of the maze, that will take solvers into the third ring. This part of the maze is of course the smallest given that it's in the center of the maze, but it's also the hardest to get to given that you have to find those two previous paths in order to get here. So eventually, in our solve, we found ourselves within this center ring. Here we see the other side of that easy gate from that we saw from the previous side. Alright, we just found piece number 8, which means we only have to make our way over to number 10, where I think the exit is. So we're here. It pretty much doesn't matter which way we go around this U. I think we can go out either way, and pretty much we're going to make it to the exit path over here. And that's when disaster struck. Alright, so I was right about one thing, in that that path led us to the exit. We actually found the exit of the maze. However, I was very wrong about map piece 10 coming right before the exit of the maze. So we have to go all the way back through the maze somewhere and try to track that down. But fortunately, at this part, we were experts on the turns and paths within the maze, so it didn't take us long to find what we needed. Alright, and we're putting on our last piece now. We found number 10. What's around the corner? What's around the corner? What's around this corner? We're out of the maze! Woo! How long did it take us? About 2 hours. So with the maze complete, we got to claim victory. Here's our victory. The stairs to the exit bridge. We did it! And with the maze solved, I decided it was time to ask Liz what her favorite part of Cherry Crest Adventure Farm had been. Liz, what was your favorite part of coming to Cherry Crest Adventure Farm?
The apple cider sundae.
That's a donut on it. That wraps it up for our experience at Cherry Crest Farms. There are so many good things to talk about with this maze, so I'm going to pass it back over to less important Anthony. Back to you, less important Anthony. You know what? You've been increasingly hostile to me throughout this entire series. How is my discussion of the maze less important than your solve of the maze? You can't even hold the camera straight for most of it. You make people motion sick. Hey, that's mean. Well, everybody FFs through your part of the videos. Oh yeah? Well, your hair's too long. So let's talk about some of the things that make Cherry Crest Adventure Farm one of the best corn mazes in the country. Much like Mazilla in the first video of this series, Cherry Crest innovated what it means to solve a corn maze. Included in this corn maze is the original corn maze goal of simply trying to find the exit, as well as the challenge that a number of corn mazes have become known for of finding a bunch of stations with a piece of information on them. But beyond that, Cherry Crest solved the map problem, namely that with a map, it might be too easy to get through the maze, and without a map, it might be too hard for a solver to get through a maze. By allowing the solver to slowly develop their map from the start of the maze to the end, the solver is completely capable of getting lost early on in the maze, but then feeling like they're a maze-solving genius by the end of it, for knowing where all the paths are and where to go. These pieces allow the players to feel like they're actually solving something as they go through the maze. Much like the maze at Unangst, I'm able to keep going back to Cherry Crest over and over again without the maze feeling stale or expected from year to year. While Cherry Crest tends to use a similar concentric ring design year after year, they vary where those paths are that take solvers from one ring into the next. So it's still pretty hard, even for a solver who's been to the maze before, to know precisely where those paths are that's going to take them to the next ring. For example, during our solve, we planned to explore the rings one ring at a time, starting with the outer ring, then going to the middle, and then going to the inside. However, we came into the maze and turned right, and very early on, we ended up stumbling down this path into the second ring of the maze. So we ended up walking around and exploring nearly the entire middle ring of the maze before we explored any of the outer ring of the maze. Much like the Oregon Dairy Corn Maze, Cherry Crest offered its solvers multiple choices of challenges as they entered the maze. For the ultimate challenge, which is what we decided to play, the solver is pretty much free to explore the entire maze at their leisure. This leads to feelings of being lost, missing paths that it would have been more efficient to explore down earlier on, and slowly working towards understanding and appreciating the full structure of the maze. But let's talk a little bit about how the other two challenges worked for this maze, starting with the Intermediate Challenge. The Intermediate Challenge claims to be a 40-minute guided walk through the maze that eventually leads to the Victory Bridge. However, as solvers entered this maze off on the right-hand side here, the Intermediate Challenge solvers were directed to the left, which actually takes them away from that path that will take them into the second ring. That's because the maze constructors wanted to have the additional capacity to add extra signs and clues all along this bottom path of the maze. This path will take solvers past the snack bar and eventually around to that path that takes them into the second ring. As a matter of fact, that one sign that I filmed in the maze about giving thanks was immediately at that crucial intersection between rings 1 and 2. Because immediately after following this sign, solvers would find their way into the word thank. So how does the easy challenge work? The sign claims that it's just a 15-minute stroll through the maze, yet it still leads to the Victory Bridge. Well, you'll notice that unlike the intermediate challenge, for the easy challenge, solvers were directed to the right when they went into the maze. You may guess that this is because they're directed immediately into the maze and directly into Ring 2. However, that's not quite the case here. Remember that gate that I saw when we were in the maze, the gate that was only for solvers of the easy challenge? Well, it's actually one of two gates like this in the maze. The other one is located at the snack bar. You can very briefly see a sign indicating this in this clip right here. You see, the path for the easy solvers was to go all the way around the outside of the maze along the top till they got to the snack bar. Then a gate located right at this wall here would take solvers from the outer ring into the middle ring. Then once they're in the middle ring, it's just a short walk across this section of the maze to this wall right here, which is where the second gate is located, the one that I actually filmed. As you can see, when an easy solver walks through that gate, they're immediately taken from the second ring into the middle ring of the maze. And from there, it's very easy to get to the exit. So we can see that adding a simple gate that says this is only for the easy solvers is enough to change your very complicated maze into something that a person could walk through in 15 minutes. Which is incredibly impressive and useful for making the maze more approachable and broadening the horizons of people who might be interested in solving it. So hopefully it's clear that every feature, every detail of Cherry Crest Adventure Farm is deliberately placed with solver experience in mind. Everything right down to the exit bridge, which has the dual purpose of allowing the concentric ring design to even be possible, and also giving solvers some amazing grand victory to work towards. It's because of this attention to detail that the maze at Cherry Crest Adventure Farm is a beacon of good puzzle design principles. It was my inspiration for this entire video series, and in my opinion, it's earned its spot as one of the top corn mazes in the country. So that wraps up my analysis of 5 different corn mazes in the series of Maze-tober. Let me know your thoughts on this series down in the comments section. Did you like it? Is there some feature of corn mazes that I neglected to talk about? Is there another puzzle-adjacent area that you'd like to see me do this format on in the future? Make sure that you check out all of the corn mazes in this series, or one that's local to your area. These mazes are a great way to support and learn about local agriculture, and they can be a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for watching these videos, it really does mean a lot. Until the next time, have a great day, and as always, happy escaping!